No Warrior, no Hogan, but we have Macho Man. It's Survivor Series 1992. Mooney, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Steve? It's been a minute or
Hmm.
almost a week, I think, since we chatted. So, how are you, pal?
I am doing great. And today, Survivor Series 1992 is very special because I have watched all the superstars that have built up to this moment. And when I get to this moment at Survivor Series 92, mm, did not deliver what I wanted it to as a fan, but we'll talk about the backstage drama at this event as well. But this is the first Survivor Series. I'm going to start off right off very angry about this show. There's only one traditional Survivor Series match. It is filled with tag team matches, one on one, nightstick, coffin matches. Why do you think this year in particular they finally dropped Survivor Series, the traditional way of doing it?
Well, I think because the roster was pretty depleted at this time, and we should talk about the overall picture here before we get into it, Steve, because Uh, I often think back, and I have lamented, many times at the time because people always ask me, "Why did you leave?" Why? And I would leave in '93, but this was, during a period of time where when I looked at this and looking back, it really does bring back to me what was going on at the time with the company, and this kind of, to me, encapsulates what was happening, and it wasn't a good time in WWE history. It wasn't a good time for the company. There was a lot going on, and so it reminded me, okay, I kind of remember why I started to think that maybe this isn't going to be my career the rest of
Mm.
my life, and started looking at maybe doing other things because I wasn't the only one. There were a lot of people that were worried about the company and it would grow, as we would see, where we're not that far away from the trial that would take place that many thought might even put the company out of business. Vince McMahon might have ended up behind bars for a period of time. They're talking about other people who would come in later, but this was and it wasn't happening at this time. But I'm just saying that the groundwork, the stuff was stirring at the time, and of course, the steroid issue was big even then. And as we know, there were a couple of casualties in this already as we went into this event. So this is a good one for as far as not necessarily as an event, as we will get into. It wasn't great by any stretch of the imagination,
Mm.
but it really did kind of show what was happening all the way around uh, in front of TV cameras. It was, very public now that seeing that this company was starting to struggle. So I think it's a really good event to talk about because it's going to give you an idea of what was happening at the time.
You make a really good point because you would think of the golden era. Like honestly, after watching this event, I sat down and thought, is this the death of the golden era?
Mm.
Like, is
Yeah.
this the is this the end? Because you have Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels in the main event. That has that is very strange for a long time where we had Hogan and Warrior and Savage and even Flair, Andre. There is no Haku. There's no Dino Bravo. There's no so many Hercules, the Paul Romas, Red Rooster, Bruce Beefcake. Like we are missing all these
Oh.
classic golden era wrestlers. And I want to before we actually do get into actually the event, like, do you feel like this is really the end of this roller coaster ride of Hogan being on top and being in movies and a celebrity and Warrior face paint? Like, is this really the end of the golden era? Because like, the new generation starts eventually, but like, this feels like it is.
No, I won't go as far as to say it was the end, but it was certainly at a point where it was starting to dim. Let's
Mm.
say it was starting to fail, and it was, and you know this business is cyclical. It always has been, and up and down. And there were even little periods before then where you would have dips, but this was really where you started to see. I remember thinking it was things were starting to happen that weren't good, and the company was financially strapped. It wasn't. You could see silly things. It took out one of the water just those big canister ones. I remember they took it out of
Water
the TV
coolers?
studio. Yeah, it was like dumb things like that that they were cutting back on, and I was thinking like, what the heck is going on here? And they say, well, it's just we got new management people there, and they're eliminating costs and stuff like that. But then at the t same time, you're thinking, wow, what's going on here? So it wasn't. I don't think it was the end yet, but you could definitely see that, as I've said before, they used to have a huge roster. There would be at least 60 superstars in a
Mhm.
sense. They wouldn't necessarily be big names or anything, but I would look, you look at the roster at this point, and as far as, there would be a lot of names there still, but as far as ones that stand out to you, you'd be like, yeah, okay, yeah, I heard of that guy that came and was in for a cup of coffee or whatever. But it was, I mean, talent wise, I mean, just look at this lineup for this event. Tells you that something major was happening in the WWF.
Yes. And especially because, again, as I mentioned, I have been watching all of these superstars getting ready for like months. I've been watching since SummerSlam 92, been watching every single episode of Superstars that's on Peacock right now. Will probably be
Hmm.
ripped away somewhere, ESPN or something. But really, the storylines heading into this, there's not a lot of them. And then when you get
It's thin.
closer, the biggest ones all fall apart all together all at once. And
Yeah.
it is shocking to see the difference of how we were building to say like Macho Man versus Hogan or Warrior versus Rick Rude, like months and months. Never did I think about 9 days before an event everything could fall apart all at once, but it does happen to this event and
Hmm.
the roster. You bring it up. I kind of brought it up earlier though, is there is not enough wrestlers to have a traditional Survivor Series 4-on-4, 5 different matches, 8 different wrestlers in each one. Like, it's shocking to think that the lack of talent means you don't get your traditional Survivor Series. Is that when you head into this event, you're doing the event centers? Are
Yeah.
you shocked to suddenly see that there are no more Survivor Series matches except for one?
Oh yeah. Oh God, absolutely. I mean, because that what was the whole event was based on, and then you just seen kind of this lineup of matches, and you're thinking, okay, maybe they're just trying something new because we always were, but at the same time, like I said, to me, it just really stood out. And going into it, though, it wasn't, you know, uh, like you said, they did have these strong storylines going, but the fact that they couldn't really fill out an event like that that people were used to seeing. And it's also amazing. We really should point out. I mean, think about it. We're not that far away from SummerSlam '92,
Mm.
and the what happened in the UK and coming off of that, which was, as I've said, it's my favorite event. And look, we're not that far removed from it, and how quickly things changed dramatically, as we've already pointed out. So to think that in my head was spinning at the time when you would, and I had to hear about all this stuff with roster stuff, and I just remember, talking with Howard Finkel and be like, "What is going on, Howard?" And Howard was always the ultimate company man, and he would
Mm.
sit there and try and even he would try and work me. I'm like, Howard, really?
Yeah.
And then he would, well, having a little issue with Bulldog, and I would get the tea. But yeah, I mean, think about that. We're not that far removed from SummerSlam '92, and then this is where we are. It's pretty shocking.
Especially because, again, 92, I feel like every single one of their pay-per-views has something weird surrounding it.
Mm,
Rumble, the world titles in the Rumble match itself. WrestleMania 8 ends oddly with Warrior returning and Papa Shango missing his cues. You go to SummerSlam 92 where Warrior and Savage is just it doesn't end the right way. Who's in
mm.
the corner of Mr. Perfect? Like, and then now we get here. There's just a lot happening in 92 that shakes the foundation. Warrior and Bulldog both prominently rolled at SummerSlam 92, not even here at Survivor Series 1992, just a few months later. It's shocking. It is crazy. Now, before we really
Well,
get
the
into every,
circumstances surrounding it too didn't help by
no,
any, yeah, and especially the what was happening in the world of sports at the time, with all of this, and as we quickly found out that professional wrestling was a big part of it too. I mean, it wasn't just the WWF where this was going on. I mean, it was going on throughout the industry too, and that's the way, and through professional sports. And so it was the timing of it was where it was awful.
Oh, steroids. Why do you think wrestling, which is an art form, it's not, it is very physical, but yet it's not like a football player or a basketball player, the way they're competing, because those outcomes for NFL, NBA, they're not predetermined. Wrestling is predetermined. Why do you think steroids is always such a big deal? Because you're going to try to tell me that actors in movies in Hollywood have never taken steroids to get buff for a role?
Well, I don't really think that people would look at it that way because, of course, it was certainly sold at the time that it was legit. Even though 80, 90% of the audience may have known differently, but the fact that it was, that was still, governed by athletic commissions whenever you went to an arena, and Vince McMahon played a gigantic role in this because prior to that, in professional wrestling, you weren't, there were certainly exceptions. There were some people that had chiseled bodies, but it wasn't the rule.
Mm.
And Vince, in a sense, changed that. Even the small guys had to have a physique. A few other guys got away with it, but you were used to that prior to that. The guys with big bellies and uh, man boobs, man boobs, and the not the most shapely biceps or whatever, but they were just big giant masses of flesh that could destroy people. But Vince had a big role in that, and because he loved that, he loved the big giant muscle guy, and changed that norm. It became basically a norm in professional wrestling. So of course it was going to become part of the industry because the rest of the professional world of athletics was doing it, and of course bodybuilding, that was already part of it. But you could have the same argument about bodybuilding too, in a sense that these guys aren't out there competing in a sense where they're banging
Mm,
bodies,
mm.
but and it's a form, it's sports entertainment, right? So that to me wasn't really something that the way people were looking at it.
Interesting.
Yeah,
For me personally, like bodybuilding, I don't know why, because your physique's supposed to be what you're competing with. So I feel steroids for that is cheating. Wrestling, I never really understood because you are trying to be bigger, you are trying to be stronger, but yet the ending is predetermined. You could be a skinny dude beating a big tall guy; it wouldn't matter because Rey Mysterio can beat, the Big Show because we are predetermined here. In real life, Big Show would smush him to death. But that's the reason why Warrior and Bulldog are out of here. They failed drug tests.
yeah,
HGH, they're using it. Boom, they're out. Building up to this Survivor Series, Bulldog was the Intercontinental Champion, scheduled to take on the Mountie here at Survivor Series. The biggest storyline coming out of SummerSlam 92 was now Warrior wanted a championship match against Ric Flair. So suddenly Macho Man and Ultimate Warrior formed a group, pretty much trying to recreate the Mega Powers.
right.
And they're going to take on Ric Flair and Razor Ramon, who just finds himself in this amazing position as a character. They have been building and building and building to this for weeks and months. 9 days before this event, Bulldog's gone, Warrior's fired as well.
Yeah.
When you hear this in the company, what are you thinking? Because this has already happened with Warrior at SummerSlam 91. Bulldog's been out, now he's back, and he's no longer IC champion and he's fired.
Well, and I think that to say that that I don't know, singled out. Well, you're thinking like Warrior and Bulldog. Okay, they got caught, and they had to make an example of them. But and this is one of the reasons that Vince that walked out of that courtroom eventually, uh, an innocent man,
Mm.
was there was never ever something that where there was a directive that came down that you need to do this if you want to compete here, but it was kind of this implied that, and these guys knew what they had to do to be able to stay where they were. Warrior was built on his whole shtick was this, basically professional bodybuilder who was a wrestler. You know, and if you look at the early images of Davy Boy Smith, I mean, when and of course he was a young kid, but I mean, he was this what a buck 60, high
Right, right.
school kid basically, and became and really like double in size, just a monster. And so I think there was a kind of a feeling, I think, among the boys that was kind of hypocritical, that they were kind of the fall guys in a sense.
Mm,
Um, Nobody was really going to be able to stand up to that because they'd lose their jobs too. But I think that they kind of became the fall guys for this. So, I mean, it was shocking, especially when you're thinking like, how could they let these guys go? But at the same time, there was this growing public pressure. And I'm sure that they felt the heat from these athletic commissions, which I always thought was so stupid
same.
that
Agreed.
these, and these and these guys would, sit ringside and have these
Hmm.
backstage. These
Hmm.
guys would have to
Hmm.
go in and have these exams. It was what a scam. I mean, I'm sure it cost, and I'm sure they had to pay. They paid for it in
Yes.
whatever way or what, and so that was always just ridiculous to me. But they had to play the game, and those were two big sacrifices. But at the same time, to think like everybody's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that! Oh, you're kidding!" Was give me a break, as Bobby Heenan would say.
I was gonna say, as soon as you
Yeah,
said that, I was like, "Are you
yeah,
channeling Bobby Heenan right now?"
yeah.
Because he's the
Give
best.
me a break, really.
Oh,
Oh,
now I agree with you 100% about everything involved there. Because if
yeah,
Warrior's already tough to work with, then well, if he's failing drug tests and you don't want, would you rather have keep Warrior, your company goes down, or you hope that you don't get caught, or
yeah,
you fight your warrior? Like, I'm sorry, you have to sacrifice these people because of what's going on in within your company. That's why there's a
yeah.
WWE in today's world, because you didn't get caught. Not Vince didn't get caught. You didn't allow wrestlers to do things you weren't privy to, I guess.
Yeah, it was a conundrum, as we would say, that they needed him. They needed Warrior. Davey Boy was also a big part of this mix at the time, and we've discussed it before. How what a shame, because it was coming off SummerSlam, he was riding high, and they did have big plans to push him, and then this happens. And it's kind of interesting to think, okay, were they like exchanging packages when they were in the UK? Like because the guy, apparently this dealer or whoever he was from
The
England.
UK.
He was,
Yep.
and so I don't, and it's just that the whole timing of all that was going on at the time, and it was a fraught time in the company. And as I said at the top of this, when I think back, I'm glad that you brought this up to do this event, because, as I said, people have asked me so many times, and it just brought back to my head, like you talk about like why did I leave? What an idiot! And then but then I'm thinking like now. It's kind of like the reality of it all comes back to you, and you say that you remembering what was going on at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't good. It just wasn't good. And there were a lot of people that were thinking, okay, what happens next? I don't think that anybody wanted to go down to the WCW. I really the we money was what really made that happen. But everybody wanted to work for that company. They wanted to be successful, but it was a rough life. And and at the time the company was definitely struggling. And I remember thinking then, is this it? Is this where it all crashes?
Now, that's why I brought up, is this the golden era? Is it over here? Because maybe
Yeah.
WrestleMania 9 is really the finishing touch of Hogan returning and all that. But this, when after watching, I just sat down and go, man, it's missing so many people because of so many different reasons, steroids being one, drugs being another. And then it's just so shocking to see all your favorites from this golden era. Where one time we did a podcast, and I think it was like something about Dusty Rhodes, and I read off every 1990 participant in the Royal Rumble, and we're both like, "Wow, look at that!
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
cool!" And then you look at this, and I don't feel the same way about this event that I did when I was a
yeah.
child watching it.
Yeah, and we should also say though, credit to Vince McMahon and anybody who has ever spent time around him will know exactly what I'm talking about. That even with all of this, and whether they were dark moments when he would be somewhere by himself and he would, be different, but you've got to give credit to him in his resilience of it. There was never in his mind that we can't fix this or we can't make it better or we can't, and that I'm sure there was not okay, we got to do that with Warrior, we got to do that with Bulldog. It was I'll tell you, and I wasn't in the room, but I'll tell you would have been like, okay, uh now that okay, this is what we're gonna do. Like it was just that okay, and
Well,
that's the way he always was. There was never in my presence or my way of thinking of being around him that he ever felt defeated. Like this is oh man, now what? And it was going to get a lot worse.
oh yes.
But credit to Vince McMahon that I'm sure I'll tell you that it was just okay. Now what? Now what's next? Okay, how do we make this work? How do we find a way?
Well,
And
they found a way,
he
and
always did,
they
one
they
way or
definitely
another.
did. This event is a proof of that. If everything, all your chips are falling, well, you got to
Yeah.
figure out what to do. This event really does prove that because as I, take a giant dump on the event as we talk, the thing with this is you can notice that things are changing and they're changing in a way that like I came in with when I was a child, when I started watching, like it's just a different feeling of what you're seeing now versus the golden era with, the Warriors and Savage and Million Dollar Man and the way they were permanently positioned. But this
Yeah.
event, Bulldog after SummerSlam 92, he has never really shown case that much. It's really shocking because whatever happened at SummerSlam 92 with Unfucked and all the drugs that were involved with that
Mhm.
event, I think, you get wind of that and you watch all these Superstars episodes, he's just doing promos. He wrestles maybe once or twice. Out
Yeah.
of nowhere, they announce a Saturday Night's Main Event between him and Shawn Michaels. And then boom, Shawn beats him. Then boom, Bulldog's fired.
Yeah.
Warrior, he's been prominently showcased, building up to Survivor Series. Same exact thing happens to him, but he gets fired. You mysteriously, now I want to shake your brain. Maybe we can get some answers out of this. Out of nowhere on Superstars, you're no longer doing the event center. It's Mean Gene giving us all these updates about Warrior no longer in the match, Bulldog no longer involved with the event, Mountie. Like, were you just off on vacation in October of 1992, or did they have to rush all this shit at once and you just weren't at the office that day? It's a hard question to answer, I
Well,
know.
no, no, but if you look back, Gene did, they were not event centers. They were special reports.
Okay, but you
And
you
and
do them all though.
Gene, no,
In
I did a
92
lot
at
of
least on
them.
Superstars.
Yeah, but a lot of those, like Gene would do them. He would do the special reports, and Alfred would do a few of those as well. The big ones, Vince would want Gene to do it. And so there wasn't a pause as far as, I'm me taking a vacation. You never took a vacation, really.
I was just shocked. I was like,
Yeah,
where'd Mooney go? Is he on vacation for this 1 week of the year? And out of nowhere, all this shit lands in his lap and he's not
yeah.
home?
No, I remember that, and then them saying that Gene's going to do the special report. Of course, they had to do all the different changes. But that wasn't unusual at all. I mean, I don't
Okay.
remember the special reports. I didn't. I did. I know I did them, but a lot of the times it would be Gene, especially if you look back and he would come in. Gene was up there every 3 weeks or so, and he would do a lot of the stuff too.
Okay.
So there wasn't like some break or me like, what are they doing with me, or am I not? I had my hands full as it was keeping up with what was happening in the event
No,
center.
No, of course. It was
Yeah,
just shocking because every Superstars in 1992, I've been watching them. You do
yeah,
all the, after the match, it goes to you. And you're like, man, I can't believe, Nails and the Big Boss Man will be fighting in Survivor Series. Let's see what Nails has to say. And, Nails cuts a promo on Boss
right.
Man and then goes back to you, goes back to Boss Man, boom, boom, boom. These about Warrior, Bulldog, and Perfect, you're just like, not there. And I was wondering,
Yeah.
did all this shit land at once on a
Yeah, but
Friday
I
afternoon?
think though if they came up, they wouldn't come up. Gene wouldn't be event center. It was always special report.
Okay, because these are
And I
event
think
centers. He
that,
was
and
sitting at
I
your desk.
yeah, yeah, and I think that, and if I remember correctly, they would do that. It would be almost like they do with mainstream news, where we've got a almost like a breaking news thing.
Okay.
We're
Yep.
bringing this in. It's a special report, and I
Yep.
think they would have the graphic that would come up, and because it would, of course, it was tape, but they would make it seem like that this just in, and so you know I'm not in what Vince's head was thinking, that I think that he liked having the different talent, between Gene and I and Alfred as well, that, it breaks it up. It looks like you've got this big team, this
Yeah.
big news team that's on stuff.
It is
But
awesome to hear that.
yeah,
I love the
yeah,
voices because, like, Lord Alfred Hayes does something, you
yeah,
do something, Mean Gene does something, and then every time they say the Survivor Series, call your local providers, it's always
yeah,
the Fink doing it. And you're like, oh
yeah.
man, and it's just all of you in a row. It's just a chorus of memories, and it's pretty awesome. And well, if Warrior's out, Mr.
Mhm.
Perfect somehow randomly on an episode of Primetime Wrestling, where again, there's been no indication there is a beef between Ric Flair, Mr. Perfect, Bobby Heenan, Razor Ramon. Never once. Out of nowhere on this random primetime episode, Mr. Perfect is there. Macho Man is live from a TV station in Sarasota. And he has to, they're using satellites to do this in 1992. And
Yeah,
he's out of nowhere saying, well, Warrior's out. I need a perfect partner. So throughout the show, Bobby Heenan is making fun of Savage, and then we even have Ric Flair and Razor Ramon via satellite, also from Charlotte, North
yeah.
Carolina, cutting
I loved it.
promos, and
Yeah,
they're all just beefing with each other because this is all has to be done now. Clearly, this was recorded very soon before Survivor
yeah.
Series, and Macho Man wants Perfect. Bobby Heenan makes fun of him the whole episode. Eventually, it ends with Perfect saying, "You know what? I will come back. I will be the perfect partner." Dumps water on Heenan. It's a classic moment. When did you know that Mr. Perfect was even cleared to wrestle?
Well, I mean, it was about the time, and he wasn't ready. That was through necessity, that that he had a devastating back injury. People often talk about the insurance and stuff that was involved. He
Was it
had like a
Lords of
Lloyd's of
London? Was it?
London,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and I don't know how he worked that one out, but uh, yeah, he wasn't ready to he wasn't ring ready. Not even, not to the point where he was healed, and at the point, and anybody that's been in the ring there, I can't contest that, but I can tell you though, but being around those guys, that you've got to be what they call in ring shape. You can't just go. You may know where all the steps go. You may know where the body's supposed to be, but you have to be in ring shape.
Mm.
And Kurt wasn't really capable of doing all of that months prior, and not that he got out of shape, didn't balloon up or something like that, but he wasn't ready to step back into the ring at the time. But uh, he was a player. I'm sure money probably had something to do with it. And they needed him. They needed a name, because the plan was he was going to continue. He's doing the managing thing. He was doing play by play. He was doing some commentary stuff.
Executive consultant, I believe,
Yeah,
was his title.
right. And so that whole situation was out of, they needed him. And Kurt stepped up. The whatever the carrot was, it was worth it to him. Taking that chance that he may have hurt himself permanently for the rest of his life. But to him, it was worth it, and they worked out a deal to get him back on the other side of the ropes.
It must have happened so quickly. Like
Yeah.
Vince fires
Well,
Warrior,
and
picks the
it's
phone
funny
up and
because,
just calls Perfect.
yeah. Well, yeah, but he was already in the mix. But You mentioned that whole thing they do, like the via satellite, and yeah, they had with Randy in Florida, and I thought that stuff was brilliant. I love
Yep.
it. You look at that stuff now, it's nothing, but at the time, it was like that is so cool. It really
Mhm.
did look capture like this is spur of the moment, and this great new technology. We get these guys on, we get the answers right away. So I loved that. I loved that whole the way they put that together.
Same. I was
Yeah,
happy to see Perfect back, but even when he
yeah,
shows up, though, he's not wearing his classic singlet. He's wearing like black, and on the back, it's all bedazzled and it says Mr. Perfect on his like rear end, I guess.
yeah,
And it was just shocking. Like, oh, I'm so happy to see you, but why aren't you wearing your classic yellow outfit with the black on the front or the blue in the back? Like, it was just so funny to see, but it was shocking because again, as you're watching these events unfold, Mr. Perfect has been a bad guy, a
yes,
heel, and
and a good one.
and a good one. And
Yeah,
he, who's in the corner. Mr. Perfect's corner is going to be Warrior a Savage at SummerSlam 92 was built. They beat the shit out of Macho Man multiple times. And yet here we are. We need a replacement. It's the perfect partner. Mr. Perfect is in. Though, like, did you ever talk to Mr. Perfect about the situation where you're like, oh, how you doing, buddy?
mm.
Because, you must not be fully healed, but they got you on the road now.
Yeah, and yeah, I did have conversations with him, and the way that you would have thought that the situation he had prior to that was great. He didn't have to go in there and get beat up. He didn't have to travel near as much. But it's crazy with those guys; they miss it.
Mm,
And I think, yeah, and he wanted to get back in there. Was just who he was, and you see that a lot with with the guys that, Randy would also have the same situation. Probably could have continued to make a lot of money, but that wasn't what he wanted to do. He wanted to be in the ring, and Kurt was the same way, and and he lived for that life. He loved it. He loved being, doing all those dates and being at those arenas and hanging with the guys and pulling the ribs and I know he missed it. So I don't think it was a whole lot of arm twisting to get him to go. And the fact that and then you're going to be a baby, kind of to step on that other side, another new little challenge here to see if you can
true.
pull it off. And he certainly did, but come on, Mr. Perfect. Kurt Hennig was a heel
Yes.
down to his bones.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, it wasn't. I don't think he went in kicking and screaming. I don't think he was like, "Oh man, I got to do this." I think that he embraced it.
Well, if
That's
you
who he
need
was.
me.
That's who Kurt was.
He was great. I did enjoy
Yeah,
him more of a heel than a baby face, honestly, but he still had a great fun run coming back and beating Ric Flair on like the second episode of Raw where
yeah.
retires Flair and he leaves. And that's to me, which is even more insane about this whole event is so we have no Warrior, we have no Hogan,
Hmm.
and then Macho Man eventually goes to do commentary, so he's out. It's like your classic golden era main event stars are all leaving or doing commentary or doing something else. And then another great character I loved around this time was the Mountie. He was supposed to fight the British Bulldog in an Intercontinental title. Well, Bulldog loses to Shawn Michaels, though, so that changes everything for the main event of Survivor Series. But Mountie quits.
Yeah.
Why do you think he quit? Because over the years, I've talked to Jacques, and he's like, I haven't watched the WWF in years after leaving the second time around.
Well, because I think that he just felt he wasn't being getting the push that he wanted, and that when that adds up, literally, it means you're not making a whole lot of money,
Yep.
and there weren't big plans to give that to him, and he saw other opportunities. As I said, there was more money down south, and these guys, at the time saw what was going on in the company too. And I think it was kind of a basically an ultimatum in a sense, and they're like, "Well, we're not going to." And I think that what was he got beaten, was gone, shortly after.
Yeah, I always loved the Mountie, former Intercontinental
Yeah, and
Champion in
yeah, it was great,
'92.
but it was also the same thing. You realize, and we've mentioned this before, that these guys get a big push, but it only goes so far. There's not a real high ceiling for that, and you start to think that you're getting to a point, maybe you're going to get in the mix with the top guys, and then it doesn't happen.
That's a good point too, because he came in as the Mountie, fought the Big Boss Man, had a great storyline heading into SummerSlam '91 with a jailhouse match. Eventually becomes Intercontinental Champion for about what 2 days, and then he quits. In October of 1982. So in reality, yeah, we've talked about it before. Even Rick the Model Martel had the same situation. All these wrestlers, there's only room for like one person at the top, maybe two, maybe a couple. These other wrestlers who are helping these baby faces get over, well, they're losing in the end. They don't really come out on top. So somewhere has to go is down. And, I always enjoyed the Mountie, but I could see why eventually you quit. But where else is there to go? WCW, and he's pretty big in Montreal. So he's done a lot of interesting, awesome things. But other weird things that happened at this event is Tatanka is heading into a storyline with Rick the Model Martel. And in today's world, the terminologies that they used for this storyline was not really appropriate. So the model steals Tatanka's Indian feathers, his Native American feathers, and then through promos that you have to toss to on Superstars in 1982 at 10 in the morning where I lived, and Rick the Model Martel, is calling Tatanka an Indian giver because he wants his feathers back. Holy shit, dude. Oh my. Thoughts, Mooney?
Yeah, we've discussed other politically incorrect things that even at the time, I think we talked about Roddy Piper and the situation with Bad
Mm-hmm.
News Brown, and like knowing at the time when this is happening, you're going, what are they thinking?
Mm-hmm.
And it was lame too. About like he steals his feathers. It was
He wanted to make
sacred
him look great. He was a
feathers.
model.
Yeah, it was lame from the beginning, but at the same time, uh, and I don't think there was this big thing at the time where people were so sensitive to, you know, uh, these kind of storylines that might take place.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're like, come on, what are you doing? That is it worth the reach here? But they were trying to make something happen with the two of them, and I don't think they really what else they could come up with. And when you have a very strong gimmick, which Tonka had as a Native American,
Yeah.
where do you go when how do you attack him as a heel? Uh, that's where you go. And I just thought the whole thing around it with the feathers and stuff, I thought they could have come up with something better than that. But at the same time, I don't know. I don't know how you do it when you have that strong character that you're leaning on their heritage or something like that. You got to be very careful. And even then, so. But I thought the whole thing with the feathers didn't work either. So what? It
In
didn't make a
1990,
lot of sense.
in
I just think they
92.
didn't have anything else. They were kind of scraping.
True.
And you mentioned Jacques, and I'm thinking, well, he left and everything, but the roster was so depleted. Maybe if he stuck around, he might, he would have gotten
Moved
a
up.
bigger push because they didn't have anybody else.
Wow, world
And this is
champion,
an
the
example
Mountie.
of it. And I don't take anything away from Rick Martel or Tatanka, but it just shows you where we were at the time.
Yeah, and the model at SummerSlam '92 had a "Don't hit me in the face" match, so he had
Yeah,
one of those. Um, so he's been fighting
didn't
Tatanka
last.
multiple times as time will go on. But I always loved Tatanka. But when you
Yeah.
do research
Oh,
on these
great.
events and you start looking it up and you start watching it on TV, because we've done a whole episode about Piper and his face paint being erased from WrestleMania 6. Well, I'll tell you what, buddy. Those Superstars episodes, I don't think people were editing them properly because this Indian giver comments are all over it. So you're just wondering, what are you mad about? Are you mad at Piper? Or are you mad about the face paint? Like, what part is too sensitive to you about certain subjects? Because why is Indian Giver allowed to still be here, but the other one isn't? I'm just shocked, honestly. I was by the editing team in the WWE, but I digress. I
Yeah.
digress. One of the things here too is you. I want to talk about you because after Mr. Perfect and the Macho Man take on Ric Flair and Razor Ramon, you're backstage with Mr. Perfect and he's busting out these giant turkeys, these frozen, kind of like unfrozen turkeys, where he's saying, "There's a turkey for Flair, you know, a turkey for Razor Ramon," and he grabs a little chicken. He's like, "And this is for you, Bobby." And you actually, you can see you on camera. You're like, hold. I can see you trying to hold down your laugh for a second.
Uh-huh.
What was that? Do you remember the situations? Because you got Macho Man and Mr. Perfect in the room together, trying to cut a promo about turkeys and chickens and Thanksgiving themes, and you're there trying to hold down the fort.
Yeah, and I remember that one, just thinking of like what's going to happen here with all these with these birds. But and that was another one where that I didn't know what was going to happen, and I don't know if they really did either. That was kind of they just went off, and it just shows how good Kurt was with when it came to cutting promos. But yeah, that was certainly one of those times. It wasn't the first where I broke. You see it on camera, and it doesn't seem like much, but it was. I remember afterwards going like everybody in the room laughing because with the when he came out with the
Yeah.
little thing, and but it just and I saw a couple of other ones that we did. The one I did with Sean, and that that was a pretty intense promo with him that I had to get to a lot of points in it. I don't want to say I don't remember like us rehearsing, but I know we had to go over a lot of it to make it work. And and this one was, when you had these and it was just kind of, well, let's see what happens and how could it really go wrong when you've got all these turkeys and just let it happen.
Yeah.
And that to me that's like one of those other ones that when it happens when you've done enough of these, when they work. And I remember thinking during the middle of that thing, this is awesome.
It's honestly one of the highlights of this event
Yeah, yeah,
where
it
they're
is.
just throwing turkeys at the ground.
Right. And it's just to their, just shows how great they were at doing how great Kurt was that, that you just go. And as Vince would say, nothing can go wrong here. And, that was one of those classic examples.
Yeah, I loved it. I wrote it down. I was like, I need to talk to Mooney about this
Yeah.
because it was just you're sitting there, you're like, you're gonna throw turkeys? Okay, here
Well,
we
and those
go.
things weigh a lot too, man. With when the
It
when
costs a
you're
lot.
yeah, you're heaving those things around. Like,
Just
it
whipping
was
them around.
memorable for sure.
Oh yeah.
That was one of the greats.
There's two matches on here that also, are this Survivor Series really is heavy on some storylines, and this one involves Nails. He was beaten down by the Big Boss Man when he was in jail. Nails says that he did not do anything wrong, but
Oh,
him,
never.
Big Boss Man, and his buddies were beating him up in jail. Well, during this promo for this matchup, Nails talks about everything that happened to him in jail, but then he talks about the nightstick match where he has to climb the pole to get the nightstick. Well, then Nels randomly goes, I'm really good at climbing, boss man. I'm like, so you escape jail? Did you get out? No, no. Like how did this all go down? But what did you think of a nightstick match? Because the pole is very tall, and Nails and Big Boss Man have a crazy storyline. It's great. I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
But what were your thoughts on that? Because nightstick matches aren't a common thing in the WWF around this time.
No, and you have to have the gimmicks to go with it. I mean, you don't just have a nightstick match, right? It's not uh it's
Not
not like you
tugboat versus the
yeah.
knobs in a nightstick match.
Right, right. So, it was kind of a natural as far as that goes. And, but where you're trying to get a weapon so you can beat the other guy down with it. So, but, uh, I think that was a great match.
Same.
And I think it's remembered to this day as being one of them, between those two. We've talked about Nails before. It's unfortunate that the guy had some serious anger management issues
What do
because
you
he
mean?
probably could have had a pretty decent run there. And not to say that he didn't wasn't justified in some of his some of the beef he had with the company, but that guy was intense. And man, you know, there are some characters that you know, these guys kind of live their gimmick. I mean, he was legit. You just felt like something was off, and which makes for a great character because then he scares the crap out of the audience too. I mean, you know, the people were legit afraid of this guy that they believed he was a psycho. So
I believed
and
him.
yeah, and then you've got Boss Man who uh, was just a great in-ring performer, and Nails was good. I mean that at least that that matchup was awesome. It was brutal. It was and so they could. I think that could have really lasted a long time. But I think we're fortunate we got to see this one, and it was and the concept of it was awesome, and the way they played it out, I thought it was great. I really did.
It fit the storyline perfectly too
Yeah.
because the Nails the starts all off. Bossman's in the ring, and Nails
Mhm.
shows up. He grabs Bossman's nightstick and just beats him down, beats him down, beats him down. And then the WWF magazine does like a photo shoot. Bossman's bruised on his face, on his
Mhm.
stomach, on his legs. He's bruised all over. So this is when Bossman can step away from television for a while Nails gets over, always saying he hates Bossman. And they've been building for about 5 months to this matchup. So they have it. Bossman wins. That's great. Well, by December, Nails is out of the WWF because he's upset about pay.
Yeah.
He chokes Vince McMahon.
Oh, that.
And, well, that little nugget right there. So
A
it's just
little
shocking
incident.
because they had storylines for superstars. It seemed like Nails and The Undertaker were about to have a storyline after Kamala was done with Taker. Yet Nails is out. So
Hmm.
for you, around this time, you're seeing what's happening. Water coolers are being removed from the office. And then you hear a wrestler is choking Vince McMahon. Like, how are you personally feeling about all the situations surrounding Nails choking Vince, but yet the company is not financially where it once was because you don't have water, not all the water, but some
Yeah.
water is missing from the office.
Well, those are really two very separate things because yeah, the stupid things going on as far as with the water cooler and everything else, thinking they could put boards on the window or something. But Nails choking Vince, I mean, that was certainly extreme because you can't imagine why, somebody would attack the owner of the company that actually helps pay you. Uh, uh, but it wasn't that crazy. I've talked about it was the Wild West then. That's how the business worked. That's how people settled things. There were incidents all the time backstage between the boys, and sometimes it was dragged into the ring, or started in the ring and got finished in the back. So sure, that was crazy, but
It was
okay, was everyone, oh my God, this is where am I? What company am I working for? Oh my goodness. So, no, it wasn't, that wasn't where you're going, oh my God, everything is collapsing. That was an ugly part of the business, but not unusual to say. I mean, it was unusual that Vince was involved, but not that it was a sign of the times or what was happening with the company. And I want to make a quick note too, because you mentioned about the nightstick match and how Nails laying in with the nightstick and I've talked about Bubba before with Boss Man and how incredibly it was not the way that he worked in the ring, and we know guys that could throw punches and it looks they're millimeters away from a guy's face, and when you're using a prop or whatever you want to call it like that nightstick, um, and how good Boss Man was at wielding that thing.
yeah.
Well, Nails did a pretty damn good job too. But I'm telling you, a lot of times those bruises on Boss Man and other guys, it just couldn't be helped. It's the same thing like when you're laying in a chair. Yeah, you know how to do it, but check out that guy's back the next day. You're still taking, it's like on the meat of your back or wherever it goes, but you're still taking the brunt of that. You can't just, it's like say he wouldn't use a rubber nightstick. That thing was real. And so it just it's credit to their professionalism and what they could do and how skilled they were in that ring that you could do stuff with a nightstick where you'd swear he'd just wallop that guy right across the back of the head and it never really connected. So it just shows you how great those guys were. You didn't get to that level without being really good at what you did.
Nails also is the perfect person for this
Yeah,
character because, again, whatever you
yeah,
want to say about Nails choking out Vince and all that stuff, his character, I believed that he was a convict. I believed he was violent. So in his promo, boss man.
yeah.
Oh shit, dude! Like, please, take my money. Like, don't hurt me. Bobby Heenan used to say that he was just buying flowers for his mother on Mother's Day, and a police officer mistakenly said he didn't pay, and that's how
Yeah,
Nails got put in
that's
jail.
it all started, and then
That's
and
how it all
then
started.
and then prison is what did it to him.
And then
The
Big
the,
Boss, that's
the
right,
injustices. It would
Big
drive
Boss
any
Man.
man to that point, to violence.
I
Yeah,
would, hey, Cobb County, Georgia clearly is a bad place for police officers because Big Boss Man was abusing his power, beating up
yeah,
Nails. These are according to Nails. I don't have all the documents here, but I believe Nails. He seems like a good guy. Seems like a good
yeah.
guy.
Well, and I remember thinking at the time though, I loved the character. I thought that was it was great. It was to talk about getting heat, and he was the perfect character for it. And I do think he walked the edge there in real life. And it's unfortunate though, because I think he could have done a lot more than he ended up being able to do. Um, and attacking Vince probably wasn't the greatest career choice
Hmm.
because I'm sure he worked after that, but he was basically blacklisted as far as getting to that level again. And you don't get there without being really good. And he earned his way in. And it's just really, really unfortunate that the circumstances happened. And you know, if he would have hung around, or we talked about before about guys wanting paydays and going wanting it right away, or not feeling that when you get to that point, well, if I'm in the match against this guy at this level, say on a pay-per-view, then I should be getting exactly what he's getting. Well, that's not the way it works. You've got to be a one who earns for you. You got to be at a level where you've actually helped pay. You've brought pay in. You've put people in the seats, and until you get that point, you're not going to get the payday. Now you're going to get a good one, but you've got to understand that it's a matter of steps here. You've got to then do it a couple three times. Okay, then you've got something to say. And a lot of these guys didn't have that patience.
Yeah, Nails clearly didn't if he's choking out Vince McMahon about
Yeah.
pay, but whatever. The casket match though is another one that blew my mind because we've seen body bag matches between Undertaker and Ultimate Warrior before, but we've never seen a coffin match. This is not a casket match. It's called a coffin match. And for
Big
weeks,
difference.
big difference. And for weeks upon weeks, we have been in Paul Bear's workshop in Death Valley watching
Yeah.
Undertaker actually build a casket by hand. He's carving it really slow. He's hitting the nails in. And we get to this match. And when Taker wins, they put Kamala in it. And now we have to, in real time, watch Undertaker take nails with a hammer. Boop. All right, next spot. Boop. Now they just put a lock on and it's over. When you heard they're gonna have a coffin match, like what are your thoughts about first off, like
Oh God,
okay,
I still
we're
get
gonna have
it
this?
still gives me the creeps
Thank
when
you.
you think
Yes.
about that. And that's what I'm saying, that's the brilliance of those matches, and also the whole Undertaker gimmick is that what is a human being's worst nightmare? I would, for the most part, my God, the idea that you would end up in a coffin. I'm claustrophobic anyway, and just even the thought of that, even as a gimmick, and hey guys, I'm only going to be in here for a little bit, and there's plenty of air, and I'm like, no, you close the lid, I'm freaking. And I
Yeah.
think that's why that was just such a great storyline that you're gonna end up in a casket in a coffin.
Yeah, make sure you say
Uh,
coffin.
yeah, but it's and then Kamala selling it. The fear of ending up in that box was everyone's nightmare. And then you see it happen, and then like you said, and they're drawing it out, and you're thinking like, can he breathe in there?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
wham, and yeah, that and did they have like the bottom that he got out? I mean, is he okay? So uh, that great stuff, and especially for people who might have had that phobia, which I think who doesn't? Tell me that anyone who's okay with that.
Mm-mm.
They knew how where to draw, where to get people, feeling for this whole situation, and that worked
It freaked me.
absolutely.
It freaked me out, and I was
Yeah,
watching it the other day. My 8-year-old was next to me, and she's like, "Is he okay?
yeah,
Like, is he? What's going on, Daddy? Why is he trying to put him inside there and close the lid?" I'm like, it's it's I get it when be like it's fake. I had to
yeah,
be
yeah,
like, listen, it's
it's not
not.
real.
He's
Yeah,
okay. Kamala is okay. Don't worry, he'll be fine. He turns into a good guy later. Don't worry. Yeah, no, freaky as shit. And they made it custom wide, and they put Kamala's uh chest paint on the coffin itself. And
yeah,
so eventually later on, when like Taker would build one for say Yokozuna, they would make sure that you remember like, remember that time he has a workshop.
yeah,
He just builds caskets for fun.
yeah, and Kamala was not comfortable with the whole thing either, even though it was, it was part of the storyline, but he wasn't happy about getting in that box. Uh,
Now, give me some magic though, because most of the time there's a breakaway bottom. You go underneath the ring.
yeah,
I don't. Do you think that it's breakaway bottom here, or he's actually being nailed in and they wheel him back?
no, I think that from what I remember, that was the box they had up there. What are they going to do? Like you know, uh, drop it down or something, and you've got more room in there, but you're still in this box. So you know, I don't remember how they gimmicked it, but
Okay.
I know that he wasn't, he wasn't comfortable, and nobody ever was. I wouldn't think doing that, but I remember that vividly. That going through it, you could just see okay, all right, I guess, and what are you going to do? You got to go forward with it. That's the storyline there, but. It's to me, have you ever done the MRI thing where they put you in the tube
Mm-hmm.
and that you can look down, you see, the other half of your body is out there. But whenever I've got to have the headphones, I got to have the things
Wow.
over my eyes because it's just that illusion to you that you just, and it's right there. So I just think that most human beings, it's not a comfortable thing to do.
No, I wouldn't think it'd be fun ever to do,
Yeah, yeah,
especially because you hear all about these ribs in wrestling, and I can imagine being actually locked inside a coffin, wheeled to the back, and then, okay, guys,
yeah.
hey
Let me
guys, can you let me
out.
out? They're
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh, you're not gonna let you out, you son of a bitch. Like,
yeah,
I can't imagine the boys having too much fun with that. Did
yeah.
they do something to Kamala? Do you know?
No, I don't. I
Oh,
because there would have been
good
hell to
call.
pay afterwards. So you got to
Yes.
remember that once the guy's out, he's not going to be happy. So, um, but I'm sure that there were more than one occasion where it's a rib involving one of the casket or the coffin, whatever you want to call it, did happen. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't imagine it being good at all. Like cut a hole open,
No.
put some shit in there or something. I
No.
don't know. Fart in the hole. Who knows?
No.
Also, Yokozuna makes his pay-per-view debut on this event. He's been on a few episodes of Superstars, not that much yet. When you first saw Yokozuna, again, everyone praises him, and I will praise him as well. A man that large, moving that fast, and then dropping the bonsai, killing Virgil here at Survivor Series. Wow, how impressed were you by him? Because we've seen
Oh my
big men. We've
God.
seen big
Yeah.
men before, but not like this.
Yeah, and I remember first seeing him and thinking, "Oh my God, what are they going to do with this guy?" It was almost if people remember in the Wayback Machine, as they say, like Haystacks Calhoun,
Oh yeah.
where I don't know what he weighed, 500 something pounds, and he would have on a pair of big overalls and basically didn't do any much in the ring because he couldn't.
Look how big he
And
is.
then you see somebody like Yokozuna. who moved around in that ring like somebody who weighed about 200 pounds. Yeah, and you see, saw him work the first time, like, holy shit! Look, my God, look at how does he, able to do this? Um, and it was, credit to, his athleticism. And I could only imagine what he would have been like if he weighed 200 pounds less, what he could have been able to do. He probably would have been doing flips off the top rope.
Yeah.
But yeah, he could, and the flexibility he had was pretty amazing too. But I do remember when he came in, I was thinking like, what the hell are they going to do with this guy? What's he going to be able to do in there besides squash people? And John Tenta was
Yeah.
like that too. He was another guy that was this huge human being who could really move in the ring that you just never would expect to see them move that quickly and with that flexibility and be able to do uh, things in there that you didn't see some people that weighed half their weight be able to do.
It was crazy impressive. He becomes
Yeah.
world champion very quickly too, like a few months from now actually. And he in this storyline for Survivor Series is he has an open challenge. That's all it says. He says I have an open challenge, and then they promote that during the event center. Hey, but Virgil a week before this event had a world title match against Bret the Hitman Hart, in an episode of Superstars. They don't mention it once on commentary, but then he just gets destroyed by Yoko here at Survivor Series. I always enjoyed the Virgil character. As years would go on, you'd hear stories about the lonely Virgil at
Hmm.
Comic Cons and things of that nature. But his storyline with Million Dollar Man and turning on him and finally getting his uppins, and he kind of fell at the wayside like a Mountie, where you can't. They're not going to make you Intercontinental Champion. You won't be World Champion. You're going to be there, but you won't be doing much. He gets killed here, and it's kind of the end of Virgil's career in the WWE. What were your thoughts on the Virgil character eventually leaving, because he goes to become Vincent in WCW, a rib
Hmm.
at Vince McMahon? Not a good call. What were your thoughts on Virgil as a character in general? Because I always enjoyed him, but what were your thoughts?
Yeah, well, Virgil was really given a gift, and it's just like how things line up that that Million Dollar Man character came along, and they figured out, well, he needs to have a valet, and it handed him a really a great run
Mm,
in professional wrestling, and but I think we all knew that once beyond that, where would he go? What would he do? And so once that ended, it was really a matter of time. They gave him a push, I think, just out of his loyalty to the company, and he could work okay. But there just was, I don't think anybody ever thought that that was going to be different for him. And so, when it all came down to it, there really wasn't anything else to do with him. They, like you said, they gave him that little big push, put some shine on him before they were going to bring this new character in, and then have him just get squashed. But after that, you know, him going south, and I'm sure they thought, well, okay, you can take it and make some money down there, then you know, thank you for your service. And like, of course, WCW took advantage of it for a jab at Vince, but whatever. It wasn't like I'm sure he didn't lose any sleep over it.
no.
But Virgil, what a great character and a great run that he had. I mean, really, he would have to take a bump here and there, but other than that, you got to travel around with Ted and be
Have a good time.
involved in all of these main event and high card matches. Uh, so for him, it was a great career. Other things have come out later of who he was personally, and Ted didn't necessarily think a whole lot of him. It didn't seem in the end there. They had a falling out, and but I don't think they were never this close pair. They just were professionals. And as Ted said, he was always where he was supposed to be. He wasn't a big partier. Uh, didn't drink or anything. Like the guys, there's always those stories of how they would go to Virgil to get his pee to pass drug tests, that he was because he was going to always be clean. And but other than that, I mean, like what a great career. I don't think that he could have lamented any of it and said, I got screwed or because it was what a great run he had, and he got to be a part of all of it for a very long time.
You're right. No, you are right. The
Yeah,
connection to the Million Dollar Man is one of those things, especially during the height of the Million Dollar Man's gimmick. Who is there? It's Virgil and Andre the Giant. They're both there attached to the hip
yeah, and
of
he
the
was
Million
good
Dollar
at it.
Man.
And let's not say that he was perfect for the role.
Yo, yeah.
I mean, had a great physique, had that intensity that you could buy. The fact that this could be a dangerous man, he could be and a protector, and so he was perfect for it.
A former Million Dollar Man champion as well.
Yeah,
So let's hold
no,
hold that back, that championship for him.
no, no.
The only Survivor Series match on this event, it's the Nasty Boys and the Natural Disasters versus Money Inc. and the Beverly Brothers. And the rules are if your partner is eliminated, you're also eliminated. So they've just decided to throw out Survivor
Yeah,
Series rules in general. The tag team division is not once it is no longer the Rockers and the Heart Foundation and Strike Force and Demolition and Brainbusters and Powers of Pain. That is out the window. We
yeah,
are, as I've been mentioning 1,000 times over, I've watched all these superstars, and the tag team division is all the storyline is Jimmy Hart used to manage the Nasty Boys, Natural Disasters, and Money Inc. All want to be tag team champions. So it's constantly, well, who's Jimmy two-time in here? He eventually goes with Money Inc. Nasty Boys turns babyface. Natural Disasters turn babyface. It's all because of Jimmy Hart turning on them to be with Money Inc. Money Inc. are our tag team champions. This is not a good match. The
no.
dot when you see the dots on Peacock, how long it is. I'm sorry, folks. I had to do it
Yeah.
because I didn't want to see this. I didn't want to see it. What were your again? We talked about it. Is it sad to see the end of Survivor Series here? I know next year in '93 they bring back the 4-on-4 matches and 5-on-5, but this is not Survivor Series. It's like Royal Rumble not having
Yeah.
the Royal Rumble match.
Yeah. And I think it just kind of encompassed the entire event that's what we had. And they had to, and it was kind of, not that storylines aren't manufactured, but this just seemed forced. It was just kind of manufactured in a sense. Okay, well, what do they have in common? Jimmy Hart. It just wasn't, there wasn't this heat or, built up and can't wait to see this. And that's what it kind of came off and it was weak tea anyway. Like you said about the elimination rules and just all the way around. It was yeah, it wasn't good. And even, it Money Inc. Okay, that was kind of a would
Never
be
was a
high on the
fan. I'll
card.
be
Yeah,
honest. Never,
what
I
I'm
was never a
saying,
fan.
the Beverly Brothers, okay, so yeah, overall it just wasn't it just kind of it did. It really just you know showed you the what this whole event was about. And it was just kind of wah wah wah.
1 year from now, Nasty Boys gone.
Yeah.
Earthquake, Typhoon gone. Bentley Brothers gone. Million Dollar Man, he's a manager.
Mhm.
IRS still there. That's what happens to every single person in this. It's not a good picture. But and then the tag division is also suffering because the first match is the high energy. Coco Beware and Owen
Yeah.
Hart in the most amazing pants ever take on the head
Yeah.
shrinkers. We did have the new foundation when it was the Anvil and Owen Hart. Anvil's out because of personal reasons, demons, but Coco Beware comes on in. That's your tag team division. Those 6 tag teams I just rattled off, that's your division. No longer Rocker, Heart Foundation, all
Yeah.
those good teams. I don't really know what to talk about this high energy match, except did you own a pair of their pants, Mooney?
Yeah, I think they were from the MC Hammer collection where
Mm,
or the genie. I don't know.
what were
And,
they
and,
supposed
and
to
I
be?
think that there were checkerboards in there too. I
Yep,
don't know.
some
It was
some
just
stripes, some dots. It was every. I
yeah.
think every shape was there.
Yeah, and how much I love Coco Beware. I think he was tremendous in and out of the ring. I love the guy. And Owen too. Owen was, both of those guys really good ring performers, and Owen was tremendous. And it just they never ever got him right. They found where, Brett found his place, found his destiny was
Mm.
as the hitman, and they just never. And Owen was certainly at his level. Owen was as good and skilled in the ring as his brother. And this is a classic example of never really finding the right uh, image for that person, the right gimmick for them. It never happened. And this one, that tag team, you got great guys, but uh, my God, you spent more time looking at the outfits. What, who came up with this idea? Yeah, and so this was another match too, and then like putting them together to try and make this tag team. Like you said, it shows you where we were as far as the division, the tag team division was at the time.
Yeah, head shrinkers are also relatively new here. They're actually
Yeah.
the ones who cost Typhoon and Earthquake, the natural disasters, their tag team titles against
Hmm.
Money Inc. So they're here, but the whole time Alpha's on the outside eating turkeys. He's just sitting there like we keep doing close-ups of him. He's getting in there good, and one point he's eating his turkey. He has a giant kendo stick. The referee turns his back. He smashes Coco with it. It goes right back to
Right
eating.
back to the Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know what the idea of that was. Like was this supposed to be some kind of stereotype, or
Cannibalism, I
or
guess.
showing that they were, yes, animals? I don't know. Yeah, that was a, and I could just like I could see like, I just envisioned like Patterson and then he's going to eat the turkey. He's just going to keep eating the turkey, and uh
Amazing.
and he would do say, and he would think something was just so funny or it was going to work, and they would just drill down on it, and you're thinking like, oh God damn, it's so stupid, like, and that was right up there. But it just, I don't know, it was, I don't know how to want to describe it as, it's not lazy story writing. It was just kind of like, well, what do we do here? Um,
They had no
that
storyline, which
that's just going
unfortunately.
to be an aside that he's doing this the whole time. I don't
God
know. It
damn it,
was
he's eating a turkey. It's
yeah,
hilarious. Thanksgiving,
yeah,
damn it.
right, yeah,
Get a close up of Alpha.
yeah. Just keep it. He keeps eating. Yeah, it's great, perfect.
The best part about that match though is when it ends, they do like a replay. It's like I think it's the splash, and Bobby Heenan has the pen, so he's drawing over them, and he draws a big turkey on him. He's like, and he's a big turkey. Like, that's the best part of this matchup.
Yeah.
And before I wrap this up, of course, you have the main event. It was Bret Hart, who was the WWF champion, Shawn Michaels, who recently became the Intercontinental champion, fighting each other at Survivor Series, not the screw job one. This
Mhm.
is a great match, but you can really see we're no longer in the I'm going to power up and I'm going to point at you and I'm going to shake and I'm going to hulk up. We're in here technical wrestling. This is completely different from anything we've seen. I don't really count SummerSlam 92 because that was special as well. This is complete. We're on a new road with Bret Hart. When you see Bret Hart
Yeah.
as the face of the company, are you saying, like, finally we're doing something with him as world champion? Or are you thinking, like, are we waiting for Hogan to come back? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, and we've talked about this before with Brett that you know, uh, he was everything that you would want in a superstar. Uh, unbelievably skilled in the ring. Great matches. Did whenever they, and it didn't matter who you put him with, he would figure out a way. And then you pair him up with somebody like Shawn Michaels, you're thinking, man, this is going to be, magic. And they did. They had tremendous matches. And the fact that they didn't think much of each other either also plays into this. Um, and I'm sure that, like maybe Vince was the same way, that because he did want to put the company in his hands in a sense. And it just, for whatever reason, just didn't work overall. And the way you tell that is the reaction that you get and the kind of draw they have.
Hmm.
And when and same thing happened with the Warrior. He was to a point, but then it was like, okay, they're not buying it. And so uh, the whole thing with Hulk Hogan, Hulk just kept coming back. Well, he came back because they needed him and they would need him again. And so this is where we were then. But at the time, I think that all the chips were there. They're on the center of the table, and it was all for Brett. They were putting it on him there, and
This
that's where we were at this point. And I think that Brett talked about this match, and as you said, it was a good one. But I think he talked about like that he slowed it down because Sean wasn't in peak condition at that time, whether it was through injuries or a little ring rust or whatever. But it just shows you how great these guys were because it was still a really good match.
And the one thing I noticed completely after watching it too was I didn't
Yeah.
remember much about this match except for the ending when Sean jumps off for like a drop kick and Brett catches him in midair and then locks in the sharpshooter, which they would recreate at WrestleMania 12 in the Iron
Yeah.
Man match, holding him until the counting down to zero. This match, though, you can tell both men are hungry because Brett's trying to prove himself as a champion. Shawn Michaels is now IC champion, so he wants to prove he's the best too.
Yeah.
Dude, you watch this match and you can tell like both men like this is my time. We're both gonna go out there together. We're gonna show the world that we are the best. We're better than the Warriors and then Hogan to the Savages and the people like that. And I honestly, when I was done watching, I was like, wow, that saved the entire event. Nothing again, nothing
Hmm.
wrong with all the matches. Nothing wrong. You can say this is the greatest event of all time or it's your favorite or the worst. But when I came back after going through it and you see the main event, you're like, damn. A bad movie can be saved by the ending. And this match, 30 minutes, a classic. And
Yeah.
people talk
Yeah.
about the Montreal one all the time, though, but this one cannot be forgotten.
Yeah, and that's what I say. You think about it, the credit to them. If that was the case, about what Brett said about this match, and Sean may have a completely different side to it, but the fact that it was so good, and if there was at any point that they had to adjust to because of what was going on out there with one of the performers, it just shows you how tremendous that those two were in the ring. And you're right that and a lot of times that's the kind of the kicker on this is that that I don't really remember many instances where you could say like Brett wasn't tremendous.
Mm-hmm.
He
It's
always
hard to find.
came through. And so why didn't it happen? Why wasn't he as big as the Hulkster? Why wasn't he as big as the Warrior? Um, as far as delivering in the ring and making you excited about watching what was happening on the screen, uh, nobody better. Really, maybe Sean, but then you had both of them,
Right.
right, for this. So it's a mystery, that's the way it played out for Brett. Um, I don't know, that he had his huge following, but was it ever on the level of Hulkamania? No.
No, no.
And that's where they needed to go.
Do you
And
think
even the Warrior had that
Do you think
to an
the
extent.
the steroid use and the physique for Bret Hart is really why Vince was like, "Oh, okay, I need somebody who's not clearly giant and jacked and huge and like steroid filled. Bret Hart was the guy who could wrestle for you. So he was doing something completely different than big powerhouse moves. Like, do you think Vince saw Bret as a guy who could just steer the waters during these terrible times because we can't be out there looking jacked and huge anymore. We have to go out there and be athletic.
Yeah, but I don't know if it was necessarily that as far as what, let's get somebody who doesn't, obviously isn't, somebody who does steroids or anything. I think he knew he was the best he had
Mm,
on that roster
yeah, true.
by far. And so that was, I don't think that there was any other real discussion about it with what they were doing at the time. So I think it just came that he was the best there was, the best there ever will be.
But
That's
I'm sorry. Are you quoting Bret Hart
had to
right
get
now,
it in.
sir?
Yeah, but I'm just I really I believe that it wasn't necessarily let's get somebody who's smaller who's not going to be as big and be more athletic in the ring. I think that just overall that Vince felt no, this is the guy we have. He's the best. He's the best we have on this roster.
Now, I love this matchup and it's so good, but what happens is I heard there's a story. I want to know if it's true or not. At the end of this event, a celebrity shows up, all in red. It's snowing suddenly. Santa Claus. I heard he was a prima donna backstage. Is this true? Because Santa Claus shows up and he hands out presents with Bret Hart and they hug and it's snowing and Vince's like, it's Christmas time on Thanksgiving. Got any good Santa stories? Was he nice backstage, Mooney?
Oh, of course, whenever Santa shows up. And I love the idea that, because Thanksgiving was always okay, let's get ready now for Christmas.
Of course.
And of course you have to have Santa show up and bring gifts. And it was part of the tradition. Why wouldn't we have Santa Claus?
God damn
Merry
it, you Sam!
Christmas. Yeah.
God, love him. I know it's funny because you're right. It was like, all right, Thanksgiving's over. Put on your
Yeah.
Christmas sweater. In today's world, it's okay. School starts. Christmas has started, and you can see Halloween decorations next to Christmas decorations, and all the stores already. So yeah, I always love when Santa pops up in the WWE at any time
Yeah.
because sometimes he gets run over by Alberto Del Rio. Sometimes he fights wrestlers, or his evil brother Santa Claus once time showed up and joined the $1 Million Man. But I love seeing Santa here. I love the Survivor Series because it brings back all the memories that I had. And when you break down what happens, the controversy with Warrior and Mr. Perfect and Bulldog and Mountie, there's just so much on here. But
Yeah.
for you, what would you take back from this? Because after talking about it here for about an hour and a half now, I still love it. But when you were there that day and you were thinking, should I leave this company? Should I stay in this company? There's water missing. Nails is choking out people. Bulldog's out. Warrior's out. Like, what would you take away from this episode after watching it after all these years?
Well, as I said early on here, that I just couldn't believe how much had changed since the trip to England, and where we were at the time. And it brought back a lot of memories for me, as I said, because I was wondering what was I thinking then. Well, I must have been out of my mind. And then seeing all this, it just brought it back to me that it was a fraught time, as I said, that the company wasn't in great shape. A lot of the guys I'd worked with were gone, and some basically forced out. And it was like, wow, what's going on here? And it really was. I was thinking, as far as where I was in my career at the time, saying, okay, am I going to go down with this? And then what am I going to do, from here next? And um, the people that like Vince, that they never batted an eye. They never doubted for a moment that they were going to pull out of this and it was going to all be better. And as I said, it got worse. Boy, it got really bad. And so it was a time where the company, and I don't really remember any other time where it was as uh, had dipped this much, and that people were really questioning, okay, is this going to be it? Is this what finally does Vince McMahon in? And as we found out, anybody thinking that was very, very wrong.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah,
But like when Bobby Heenan and Mean Gene are asked to take 50% pay cuts of their money, a year from
yeah,
now, it's funny because I always see when you do interviews, the question is always asked, why'd you leave? Well, it's interesting that you're discovering why you left as we do this podcast,
yeah.
realizing that not everything was sunshine and rainbows.
No, no, it
Sometimes
wasn't.
it was some dark times, but all in all, whoo! Thank you so much, Mr. Mooney, for sharing all your stories about Mr. Perfect throwing turkeys at the ground to nails choking out Vince. Never will get over that though, but I will still carry on that Santa was a prima donna here at Survivor Series 1992. These are the rumors. I can't Dark Side of the Ring, season 12. Santa Claus was a bitch to work with at Survivor Series 92. But all in all,
Imagine that.
that'd be a great episode. I want to be interviewed. I want to be I want you to be interviewed too. But thanks so
Uh,
much for watching. I'm Steve. He's Sean Mooney. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.